Hey everyone, what's going on? I got a little bit of time here today, so I want to make a follow-up video in regards to this video that I put out yesterday. And in this video, I talked about Rosemary's Baby, Roman Polanski, and how Charles Manson is really synced up to a lot of what is going on. And Charles Manson and the Manson family actually murdered Sharon Tate, who was the wife of Roman Polanski, and so on. So, if you're new to the channel, just check out this video, check out some links in the description, and you'll learn to apply what I am talking about, and you'll learn why it is more important. I explain it in many other videos. But I got a comment on this video from Zenith of the Alpha, and what's so interesting is he just pointed out that the Charles Manson stuff is connected to the Beach Boys, right? And the Beach Boys are really important, but the song Kokomo, which I brought up in the video, that also has a tie back to John Stamos from the TV show called Full House. And even if you go look up John Stamos actually even played with the Beach Boys. He played drums with them, and he was also in their music video for Kokomo. So John Stamos has this connection to the Beach Boys. If you ever watch Full House, he really loves Elvis and the Beach Boys as well. But there's this big narrative with San Francisco and the Golden Gate Bridge. And I was talking a lot about that back in 2015 with John Stamos. There's an episode in Full House where you find out that Uncle Jesse's real name is actually Hermes, and it's not Uncle Jesse. And the interesting thing about that is that Hermes is, a god who can give knowledge to humans when they are ready, right? And that's where Hermes Trismegistus comes from. That's where the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn comes from. That's why it was important that San Francisco set, or, Full House is set in San Francisco where the Golden Gate Bridge is. And I made a few videos in regards to all of this, and I talked a lot about the number 88 because there's a big time travel theme going on, and so on. And what I noticed was that the 88th episode of the TV show Full House is actually titled Fuller House. And then later, a year later or something, or maybe it was, I can't remember how long later it was, they came out with that new Netflix series called Fuller House. But back to the story, and I'll explain more about this in a second. Just wanted to point out that Zenith pointed out that John Stamos and Jeff Franklin are important. And the reason Jeff Franklin, the creator of Full House, is so important is that he actually bought the house that Sharon Tate was murdered in, right? Franklin bought whatever Cielo Drive, site of the Tate murders in 1969. Also says it's a French country-style home. And if you watch the previous video, I talk about why France is important. Roman Polanski, when he got accused of rape, he had fled the country to France, which is, where he was born and whatnot. But it's a big thing that's connected to August 10th this year with the 227th anniversary of the fall of the French monarchy. I'm not going to re-explain that. Like I said, you have to check out the previous links. But, what are the odds? It's connected to John Stamos. It's also connected to Jeff Franklin. And a big thing with John Stamos was all about the Golden Gate Bridge. But over the years, I have documented how San Francisco and Philadelphia have this connection together. Think about the Warriors who were originally from Philadelphia and so on. And later in 2015, I talked a whole lot about the Ben Franklin Bridge, the Franklin Bridge in Philadelphia. So they're both interesting things I've been watching for. I just feel like we're going to get some type of story eventually, or maybe it's all symbolic. But the Golden Gate Bridge and the Ben Franklin Bridge are both very, very important, at least in regards to, symbolic things that are going on. Also, what was interesting is when I looked up Jeff Franklin's things that he's produced and whatnot, it says it's Gary Shandling's show. And in the previous video, and for a number of months since November, I have been talking about how all of these things that are going on seem to be syncing up exactly the same way that it all happened in 2016 when Zach's house got crashed into, and so on. After a guy named Monograph on here had made a video telling him to watch out for Christmas Eve. Then he got a car crash through his house on Christmas Eve. And I wonder if that's important too, because I've talked about Kevin Spacey, and that was from Zenith of the Alpha too, but the information, but he pointed out that Kevin Spacey said, "Let's be frank," on Christmas Eve this year, and the guy that he supposedly was a sexual predator that came out against him was Anthony Rapp, who's in the musical called Rent. And the musical Rent the plot begins on Christmas Eve. And now I'm just thinking about Christmas Eve with this, but, Zach's car crash on Christmas Eve, and so on. But if you go back around that time, a big thing I was following was this Miami Dolphins connection, and my uncle randomly put this Dan Marino Miami Dolphins jersey on my front porch. I didn't know where it came from, and so on, and then he ended up dying, 2 weeks later, and, it was crazy. I got this letter in the mail with $300 in it the same day that he died from somebody that I don't even know for making these videos, and, a bunch of other things, but it was that same day when I was watching the movie Ace Ventura, and there was an article about they figured out how Gary Shandling had died, and I went back and looked at my Gary Shandling post, and I talked about another story about these 333 whales dying, and it was all showing me the Miami Dolphins through South Park. There's an episode where they kill the whales and the dolphins on South Park, Japan does, and I was like, I wonder how far away Gary Shandling's death to the Super Bowl was, and it was 10 months and 12 days. And then there was all kinds of stuff with that number. My uncle was a Knight of Columbus, and Christopher Columbus discovered America on the date of October 12th, 10/12, and much, much more. If the Eagles or the Falcons would have won the Super Bowl, they would have been like 10-12 against the Patriots or something like that. A bunch of stuff had led me to check out The Simpsons episode that had Dan Marino in it. The only one that had Dan Marino in it was season 10, episode 12. And in that episode, the Falcons go to the Super Bowl and they lose in the Super Bowl, which is what happened, And then my uncle, he even died just outside the town where their mascot of the school that they go to is the Falcon, and so on. A bunch of these crazy things. So I just found it interesting he produced the Gary Shandling show as well. So just put that in here. Also, what's interesting is Sharon Tate. She was 8.5 months pregnant when the Manson family murdered her. And just recently we got that story about the girl who was pregnant and they cut the baby out of her womb and killed her, right? And then that baby just recently died. But that girl's father was from Des Moines, Iowa, where Slipknot is from. And that girl also even lived in Des Moines, Iowa in the year 2017. So she had this connection to Des Moines and Slipknot and so on. I've said how Slipknot is really important. Also, when you read through Sharon Tate, you find out that she actually met Roman Polanski and their relationship began when they co-starred in the film The Fearless Vampire Killers. And once again, go back and listen to what I was talking about. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is really important to this number 310 and this big troll theme that's going on, but it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and they're in this film, The Fearless Vampire Killers. Charles Manson died 3 months and 10 days after the anniversary of the murder of Sharon Tate, and Roman Polanski, his rape supposedly happened on the date of 3/10. So how odd that their first thing has to do with, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Fearless Vampire Killers. I'm skipping over a whole lot of stuff, but just wanted to follow up here on some extra things that I found. I knew that I had talked about Sharon Tate a long time ago too, and I went into my notepad, and in my notepad when I talked about Sharon Tate, I was following a lot of stuff with the number 8, and I didn't really know gematria fully, but I knew there was something important with numbers back at this time, and there was this big Neptune theme with the Broncos and the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, and so on, and Neptune's the 8th planet, and, you know, Neptune wields the trident, and I was pointing out all the stuff with Rihanna and so on. She's from Barbados, where their flag is the trident, and she's from alphabetically the 8th parish on Barbados, and she was born in 1988. Bunch of 88 stuff, and that's what I was talking about in here, why she died at Sharon Tate died at age 26, which is an 8, 2 plus 6. I knew there was something important to numbers back then, but I talked about Jack Nicholson right around with this, because Jack Nicholson was actually a friend of Roman Polanski, and then he was even in a Roman Polanski movie called Chinatown, and when Roman Polanski got arrested for that rape, it just so happened to be at Jack Nicholson's house, right? So Roman Polanski arrested at Jack Nicholson's house for the rape of this 13-year-old girl that happened on March 10th, 310. And think about Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson is the Joker in Batman. And Edward from Twilight, the vampire movie, is going to be the new Batman, which was a big deal, right? Also, Batman was the big important thing that was connected to Slipknot and the Iowa State Fair. Slipknot's going to be performing at the Iowa State Fair for the first time on August 10th this year. They're a band from Des Moines, Iowa, and they've never played the Iowa State Fair. But in 2015, Donald Trump went to the Iowa State Fair, and there was a headline article where Donald Trump said that he was Batman in a helicopter. Batman 51, helicopter 51, and 57. Iowa State Fair equals 57. And that same month, we had the death of Batgirl, Yvonne Craig, a guy who dressed up like Batman that went around the hospitals and died. Also, the death of Morgan Freeman's granddaughter, and they showed him and her at the Batman premiere. We had the sentencing of James Holmes, the Batman killer. All of that was going on in the month of August that year. And I just find it interesting how I mentioned how all these are connected to Charles Manson and Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate and so on. And Jack Nicholson is where his house is where Roman Polanski got arrested at for this rape. So, I mean, I'm really thinking we need to watch the Iowa State Fair this year. August 10th. Just seems like the Iowa State Fair. Maybe we're going to get some type of, maybe it'll be a big shooting there or something like that. It just seems there's something really important to that, what I was talking about with the Iowa State Fair and Donald Trump. And then we did get that concert attack in Las Vegas, right? The Jason Aldean concert attack that we got on October 1st in Las Vegas, which is oddly enough sort of connected to this because Jack Nicholson co-starred in this Chinatown movie that Polanski made with Faye Dunaway. And if you remember, don't remember what year it was, but there was an Oscars where they announced that Moonlight had won the Oscar for Best Movie or whatever it was, and then Faye, it was a mistake, like how Steve Harvey did it at the the Miss Universe pageant. Steve Harvey had messed up, and then they met Warren Beatty or whatever. He messed up at the Oscars, and Faye Dunaway was the one who came out and said that no, it was actually La La Land that had won. But that Miss Universe pageant, it was super connected to the Nice, France van attack that happened on the 227th anniversary of the storming of the Bastille. And that's why August 10th this year is important to France as well, because it's the 227th anniversary of the fall of the French monarchy. And French monarchy equals 227, French Revolution 227, and Napoleon born on the 227th day, which is also the same day that Donald Trump said that he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair in a helicopter. But when that Steve Harvey thing happened, I believe it was the same day we got the death of Jimmy Carter's grandson, and it was all connected to the number 80. And Jimmy Carter's birthday is 10/1, right? That was the same day as the Roseburg, Oregon shooting, where we got the guy that was on the French train attack who went to the Roseburg, Oregon College and so on just after he had. We got this Roseburg, Oregon shooting just after he had saved these people on the French train, supposedly. But Jimmy Carter's birthday is on this day. And his can't remember what it was. Let me see if I can find it here. Jimmy Carter. And it was something to do with the number 80 like crazy. This Miss Universe pageant, I wrote December 20th equals 80. There were 80 contestants. It was 80 days after Jimmy Carter's birthday. And then Jimmy Carter's grandson had died. I know there was a few more 80s. Maybe I didn't read. This was like from an old blog post I must have copied and pasted. But, there was something connected to Jimmy Carter and that pageant. So, and then his birthday was the same day as the Las Vegas shooting. So that just makes me wonder if this Iowa State Fair thing, if something's really important to the Iowa State Fair that we need to watch out for this year. It will be on the anniversary of the La Bianca murders that the Manson family did the next day, after they did the Sharon Tate murders. Also, in regards to Neptune, and I talked about this, in a video back or two, but the guy in Aquaman, which just, Aquaman and the water, the trident, right? Neptune, the ruler of the sea. The interesting thing about this guy is when you look him up, you actually find out that he actually grew up in Norwalk, Iowa, which is just south of Des Moines. It's part of Des Moines and so on. So that also makes me wonder, there's something with water. Remember, the only president from Iowa was the president when the stock market crash happened. Everything about Donald Trump is the wall and Wall Street. And interesting, this guy's birthday is August 1st, too, which is this big bridge number, right? The bridge collapse number, the Minnesota bridge collapse on 8/1 that fell 81 feet. Main truss is 81 meters long. So, I'll have to look more into that, but I don't know. I'm just wondering. This guy even has a connection to Iowa. Remember, Ben Affleck. Also, Ben Affleck was in Batman vs Superman, and remember Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who was just in the media for being trolled. It was with Dean Cain, who plays Superman, right? Best known for being Superman, so Batman, it's Superman. This guy's Aquaman character first came in that Batman vs. Superman movie that starred Ben Affleck, Ben Affleck's birthday, even the same day that Donald Trump announced that he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair, because it's also Napoleon's birthday, right? So, a lot of interesting things going on with this narrative here. Another thing, in regards to the Beach Boys, I documented on one of these posts, I don't know which post it was, I talked about a whole bunch of stuff with John Stamos and whatnot. In my John Stamos video where I talked about the 88th episode of Garfield and Friends. I think it was the 88th episode. It was season 3, episode 10. It probably wasn't the 88th episode. Oh, it was an episode about time travel. It was a parody of Back to the Future. That's why 88 was important. But Garfield and Friends, and it was season 3, episode 10. And I was like, what are the odds? 310? This big thing I've been following in connection to the pig year and also the lion theme. Garfield the cat. If you ever watched this TV show, it is split into 2 sections, and there's one where the main character is Orson the pig, and then the other half is Garfield and Odie and so on, right? And Orson equals 310 in Jewish gematria, the pig. This is a Chinese pig year. And, August 10th is World Lion Day. That's why it was important that We got the Ethiopian airline crash on the date of 310 because Haile Selassie is known as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And August 10th also happens during the time of Leo, which is the lion, and much, much more. There's this giant lion theme that is connected, and it's a pig year. So this was definitely an important TV show. Also, I've been talking a lot about how 9/19 this year is 9/19/19, and 1 month and 9 days after August 10th is this date. And this is the date that James Garfield, the president in history, had died from an assassination by Charles Guiteau, or however you say his name, who has French ancestry. So, that's interesting. Oh, but in one of these posts I talked about the Charles Manson song, Never Learn Not to Love, or something like that. Let me see, Beach Boys 2020. Oh, let's see if I can find it here. Maybe I gotta type it like this, 2020. The Beach Boys, though, on this album called 2020, which interesting is recorded on September 19th, and it came out on February 10th, 210, which is important to John Stamos, and, San Francisco, California equals 210. Another number that has been in relation to the 310, so I never noticed that before, but Never Learn Not to Love was the song that they actually stole from Charles Manson, and it just so happens to be on their album called 2020. Let me see what track it is. I guess it's on, I don't know. It's sort of hard to tell. I guess it's track 4 on side 2. But moral of the story, the album's called 2020. And think about what next year is. Next year is 2020, 2020. Hindsight is 2020. And in this post where I talk about the Orson, whatever it is, I can't find it again. There's another post where I talked about this TV show from way back, and what I had talked about was how I wonder if that's how time travel works. Is that all of these things from your past are somehow making you understand the future. And then if you can understand the past, you can understand the future. So I just find it interesting in regards to hindsight and this album being called 2020. Next year is 2020. Maybe all of these things I've been documenting about will make a lot more sense, from the hindsight from the year 2020. And I'll get a way better understanding of what is going on in this world. And that's something that I've been talking about. What I think August 10th and 11th are really connected to is how we're going to get this big revelation in regards to this research and this knowledge of the world. So, just something to think about. So, one more thing I'm going to end the video here. I wanted to make a shorter video, and I just keep rambling, but it all makes sense. It's just craziness. This morning I had to give my daughter's friend a ride home to his house, and he lives like clear out in the country, like ridiculous. He lives like, feels like 8 miles between all the towns that are around here. He lives like right in the center of them. But I didn't even have time to even put this picture up yet. But I looked at my phone, and once again I have this notification saying that there's a new Loretta Lynn album called Waterfall. And I haven't even looked it up, but it's just like, what is this deal with Loretta Lynn? Her name equals 310. But why do I keep getting notifications for Loretta Lynn from Google? And I must have clicked yes on something to get these notifications that I didn't even realize. But notice one of them says Trolls World Tour, new trailer out now. So the Trolls literally have a new movie coming out. Trolls World Tour. Remember the guy who created the Trolls died 3 months and 10 days after his birthday and so on. But there is a new trailer for this Trolls World Tour. And when I was watching it, what I got out of it was that the trolls are all from different worlds. There's like 6 or some different types of trolls. You know, there's pop trolls, there's rap trolls, there's metal trolls, and so on. And basically, the rock or the metal troll wants to take over the world of trolls, and they want to get rid of all the trolls who aren't rock and whatever. And I'm just thinking about Slipknot again, you know, being the metal band or whatever category you want to put them in, you know. They're heavy music though, right? It just makes me think about that and how they're connected to the troll theme and whatnot. Maybe I should let me look up Troll World Tour. I wonder when it comes out. Also in the original that Kokomo video too, I wanted to talk about something with France. I don't even know where I put it. Let's type it in here again. I always have so many windows open I can't even find it again. But what's interesting about this song Kokomo, it's not really Mandela effect, I don't think. But for some reason when I was a kid, and I still hear it in my head. Like after they sing Kokomo on this Trolls thing, I always remembered that part where it goes da-na, da-na, da-na-na-na-na-na. I always thought it said come on and dance. I wanna go to France. And it does not say that, and when you read the words, it doesn't really seem to even make sense that it would be in that song. And I wonder if, like, when I was a kid, I just created that part in my head because I do that all the time. I listened to tons of Weird Al as a kid, and, you know, I used to make up lyrics all the time, just stupid stuff to songs and whatever. And I wonder if when I was a kid, I just put that in there for me to put it in there. And that's why I remember it that way. But it's just interesting. It even has this connection to France. You know, the whole song's about the Caribbean and whatnot. But for some reason, I thought it said, I want to dance and go to France, you know, so I don't know. It's just kind of mind-blowing to me. But anyway, let's go back to this Trolls World Tour. The main character in the Trolls movie is born on August 9th, which is the day that Slipknot is releasing their newest album. Can't remember what it's called, but let me find this really quick. Maybe it'll say it up here. We Are Not Your Kind. That's coming out on August 9th. So, August 9th is important. That's the day of the Tate murders. That's, you know, what is it? Wouldn't it be the 51st anniversary of the Tate murders too? 1969 to 2000. No, it would be the 50th anniversary, right? 79, 89, 99, 09, 19. So on the 50th anniversary of the Tate murders is when Slipknot's album is coming out. I was going to say it was the 51st. That's like really important to Batman. Batman 51 and so on. Helicopter 51. Okay, let's go back here though. This troll movie. April 17th. So that will be the 108th day of 2020. 40, 57, 61, and 41, date numerology. I'll have to look more into this movie. 417 was important, you know, from some sync stuff with my uncle dying on April 17th, and so on. Justin Timberlake was really important to the kneeling during the national anthem stuff with Charles Manson, too. Remember after Charles Manson died, the Eagles went on to win the Super Bowl, and Justin Timberlake was performing at the Super Bowl for the first time since he showed Janet Jackson's boob. And just after they showed Janet Jackson's boob, the next year they had Paul McCartney, the Beatles guy who wrote Helter Skelter, Charles Manson, the Helter Skelter Theory. They had him do the Super Bowl because they said it would be safe and there wouldn't be any accidental boobs showing and whatever else. But when Janet Jackson's boob got shown, she was singing songs off of her album called Rhythm Nation 1814 that was called that because it honored the year Francis Scott Key wrote the national anthem. And Charles Manson, his helter-skelter theory about blacks rising up. The big thing is all about the blacks kneeling down in the NFL and so on. But I'll leave it there. Just want, like I said, want to make a follow-up video. Hopefully, it will start raining so I don't have to go mow the lawn, because this new house has a gigantic lawn, and all I have is a little crappy Walmart lawnmower. So that's what I'm kind of waiting out on here. So, but have a good one. Peace.